Good morning, everyone. It is 9:30 on the dot. Dr. Martin, do we have anyone? No? Okay, well, let's just give it a few moments. We'll let Jill get settled and Dr. Ellen, would you mind grabbing an agenda? And how many are left? Two? We'll just take both of them and I'll use one for notes, please. Looks like I forecasted correctly with the number that I printed. All right. Thank you all for coming today. We'll just go ahead and get started, and it looks like we'll have an intimate conversation today, so no problems there. We're going to start with two announcements. One is that we have recognized that the frequency of these task force meetings might have been a little more than necessary for this phase of the process. We know that, wonderful, hi Tira. We know that the task force is going to be extremely helpful when we are evaluating the demonstration projects, but we won't be able to begin that phase until the environmental review is finished. And although that's in process, we don't expect that to be complete until the end of summer, probably maybe even early fall. So in light of that, we've decided to pause task force meetings over the summer. And then when we resume in the fall, we'll likely do an every other month basis. And really, it's just to ensure that we're making the most of our time together and that our meetings are productive and meaningful. The last thing we want is to be taking your time when, there's just not enough to review with you. But once we begin the demonstration phase of this project, I think there's going to be a lot more meat for us to discuss. So,
also just keep abreast of your emails, because that is how we're going to communicate any updates. Okay, so if you haven't been reading your emails, make sure that you are, so that Sean and I get, as we're going through the action plan and all the updates from the data, things like that. We may want to share information with you all. We need some feedback on it. We're definitely going to start the pre-surveys for the demonstrations. We're going to start developing those in like June. So you may get some communication from us just for your feedback on how does this look? Do you think this makes sense? So keep abreast of your.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Okay, and then another announcement. So last month we mentioned that the federal notice of funding opportunity, the NOFO, had been released for the 2025 SS4A grant round. And we took that as a promising signal that our current planning and demonstration grant would move forward as planned and as intended. Given the, I would say, turbulent news this spring of, federal grants, we were a little anxious for a while earlier this spring, but when that 2025 NOFO came out, we saw it as a promising sign. So after much consideration, though, city leadership has decided that we will go ahead and apply for our implementation grant in this 2025 round. Now, this is a significant shift from the process that we had previously outlined, which was that once our safety action plan is complete, then we would apply for the implementation grant, and that wouldn't have happened until next year's round. But given the growing concerns about the future availability of federal funding, we believe that this is just the most prudent course of action for us to ensure that we're doing everything we can to get the resources needed to go ahead and implement these safety action strategies. So, so it's a little bit different than what we've been communicating. But yeah, again, we just think that acting now is, the best thing to do in light of the current funding climate out there. Hi.
Good day, sorry.
That's all right, Jerry, how are you? Or it's not Jerry, I'm sorry, Jacob. There's a lot of J's today. We noticed.
So Sean, how will that grant look if we don't have the action plan?
That is a great question. I was hoping, okay, let me catch you up, Jacob. I was just telling these guys, number one, we are going to pause task force meetings over the summer. We think that probably the monthly frequency was a little bit more than necessary for this phase of the project. But when the demonstration projects start happening, we'll really need the task force's input on that. We can't start those though until our environmental review is complete, and that will likely take us through summer. So we're going to pause over summer, which actually a lot of the other boards and commissions do as well. So, and then we'll resume in the fall when we are ready to start demos. And then also, I was just telling these guys that city leadership has decided that we're going to go ahead and apply for an implementation grant now in the 2025 SS4A round, which is different than what we previously planned to do. We had previously planned to, with our planning and demonstration grant we're currently in, we would create our safety action plan and then next year apply for the implementation funding. Given just the concern about federal funding, and because they did open the 2025 round, which we took as a great sign that our current grant wouldn't be interrupted. City leadership has decided, you know what, let's just apply now and make sure we're doing everything we can to get these funds, because there's just concern that they might not be available next year. Jill asked the very smart question of how do we even apply for this when we don't have our safety action plan complete? So SS4A allows applicants to apply with an existing safety action plan as long as it meets the requirements and covers the same area. And so we actually have that with the safety action plan that East West Gateway created. East West Gateway is the metropolitan planning organization for this whole region, and they have already done an SS4A planning and demonstration grant. They created a safety action plan. So we are actually eligible to apply with the East West Gateway plan. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, well then, you know, we're gonna have to implement what's in that plan, and how does that work with what we're creating? And our local priorities we don't believe they'll be off the table. There's a lot of overlap. I mean, these projects are, SS4A is rooted in the safe systems approach, which is really all about recognizing that serious injuries and accidents are caused often by human mistakes. And so as long as if we can design systems that keep that in mind, you know, that's what will be helpful in reducing serious injuries. So a lot of the strategies that are taught through SS4A are common in every community. So we really think that a lot of what is in the East West Gateway plan will apply to what we consider putting into ours. But also we will still have our safety action plan, and that, we will, as best as we can, try to align the priorities in our plan with the resources from, you know, and the strategies implemented in East West Gateway. I mean, there's still a little bit there to figure out, but creating our own safety action plan is still vital, and it's still important, and it serves as a roadmap for us. So we're still figuring it out, to be honest, but we know we can apply with the East West Gateway plan. We're concerned the funding might not be there in the future, so we're just going to go for it. We also believe that the strategies in the East West Gateway plan will be similar to the strategies that we want to implement here. So we're going to go for it. We're going to see what happens. And then we're going to align it as best we can. If we get funded.
Is there flexibility when funded to kind of shift different projects as needed based on what you applied for and maybe what comes out of our demonstration projects and safety action plan.
I mean, I can't say for certainty, but I know at least with, I think, I believe there's a little wiggle room because, you know, we've looked at, some of our current demonstration projects that were put into our planning and demo application. And not all of like the exact precise locations were in our application for our proposed demos. And so, you know, there's some wiggle room on where we put those. So honestly, Jill, we're still figuring it out, but we think so. We think we'll be able to align it. Dr. Martin, please.
Yes, yes. So in the grant process, when you apply, first submit the proposal, it's a proposed idea, and there can't be too much venturing off of that because that's what they awarded.
Right.
However, in developing this proposal, Public Works, city manager, and, you know, all are involved with looking at, what the community has already seen, right? So we're basing all the projects off of the information we've already received from the community.
Okay.
And things that people on the ground are saying, like, you know, TAC has a lot of information. And so we're really trying to look at that information to ensure that the projects that are in this implementation grant, that they are what the community wants. The biggest thing is, like Sean said, we don't know if 2026 is gonna be.
Yeah.
And the other piece of that is the action plan that we're working on is it's like a strategic plan, right? And so it's a commitment from Webster Grows. So yes, there will be hopefully projects that are in the action plan that we're applying for implementation. If it's awarded, great, we get the money. But if not, in the funding of 2026, we'll just go in a lot better than we did in 2025, right? So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But right now, leadership just really thinks that this is the best thing. But the action plan is necessary. You have a question?
Yeah, so if you apply for the 2025 implementation grant and are awarded the 2025, are you still eligible for the 2026 implementation? Or if you receive the 2025, that's the grant fund?
Right.
Right.
Correct. So we don't know if 2026 is gonna be out there. There's been several changes. Typically, it's only a 5-year grant, so I shouldn't say typically, but the way that the grant rolled out was there was, I think like 3 times a year. Put it out once. Okay, so that's, while the money is there, it's still concerning that they ventured from the way it had been presented the 3 years before.
They also
So-
shortened the
And
time
they
frame.
want to get
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand the.
The
especially
concern.
School district side, I mean, we're looking at federal grants also, and
Yeah.
the impact on. What could happen or what mandate could happen, if she got the board in. So I totally understand. Grant funds available.
Yeah,
I was just curious, so if you're not awarded the 2025, if the 2026 is still available, you can able to reapply.
Absolutely.
2026.
absolutely. And, you know, at that point, I don't know if they give feedback or not. You know about grants. Folks that are grant people. Sometimes they give feedback, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to tell what,
Yeah.
what we're doing.
And sometimes it depends on how many people apply for the 2025,
Yeah.
how many they're gonna award.
Yeah. One of the biggest things and I think for most agencies that are applying for grants, is that the change in what the administration is looking at. And, ensuring that you can align your outcomes with that. And so, for us in this grant, it's not hard because, you know, they treat it as a hard thing, but for other grants, it can be difficult, especially in education.
I just wanted to piggyback, I mean, we're talking about East West Gateway, because I don't know how scrutiny this, but East West Gateway takes input from all municipalities, school districts included, so we have with East West Gateway as a city or Webster School District, we provide all of our potential risks and potential action plans and potential projects that we could have done on impact the gateway as a whole. So just because we're piggybacking on the East Coast Gateway, correct me if I'm wrong, just because we're piggybacking on the East Coast Gateway does not mean that the city of Webster Grove not input on the East Coast Gateway action.
We did.
It is,
Yeah.
and so I totally.
Yeah, you're absolutely
But
right.
A lot of it, East Coast Gateway, from municipalities went into the development. So just because we're using that plan. In my opinion, it really makes no difference because you already did an analysis by the East Coast Gateway. This is just,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. That is helpful.
And all the action plans in the metro area should complement each other, right? So that's the other thing. So we're looking forward to applying for the implementation grant, and we will learn a lot about who, you know, when the awards come out and get feedback. Oh yeah, it's learning every day.
It's a pivot. It's a pivot, but yeah. But the goal is the same. The goal is to implement safety strategies and hopefully with funding to help us get that in action. So any other questions?
The time when to do,
June 26th.
Yeah,
that's quick,
yeah,
good luck.
yes. It's a tight turnaround. Okay, you want to move into, oh, perfect, you already did. Okay, question of the month. So, the question is just, I know most of you guys are affiliated with other organizations, other boards and commissions, and so really this probably would have been a more robust conversation if more, were here today. But we were just trying to get some conversation about how your other groups in this task force intersect and complement each other. And also just trying to find out about the work in your other groups to see how we can work together and.
I actually have a question about, so I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission,
Mhm.
and we, you know, if you don't know, we often get proposals from residents to submit to their plan. They have to go before our commission to get permission to do whatever renovations. And so we have one developer who, and I had two questions. So the first one, we have a developer whose name is Onder, right? So he's going to be doing some construction on Brentwood Boulevard. That land used to belong to Maria Powell, who was an emancipated woman in the 1800s, who was given 3 acres of land. The building that's now in that space is it was the tile library, but it's scheduled for demolition. But what we proposed is some kind of plaque to commemorate the significance of that land and who used to own that land. And I don't know where he's going to put that, but it would probably be somewhere visible where people driving by can see, right? So that's one question I have is like, how would our work sort of impact and think about safety? What should we keep in mind when we make those kind of recommendations to developers? And my second question is, so I live on Bacon, and right on McKnight, there's these like on the side of the street, there are these bricked sort of like I don't know what you call it, but it's part of the street, but it's bricks, but they're sinking. You know what I mean? Like they're starting to decay or erode. Like who do we talk to about that to get that addressed?
So Nan, what are your suggestions on that? There's a few different avenues.
The plaque is a great idea. What we would be concerned about is sight distance and, you know, physical for that not to be a barrier to traffic safety. Crosswalk, well, there's no crosswalk, but there will be some driveway accesses. And so along with that, the visibility of the different modes of traffic coming together there, that shouldn't be impeded. But outside of that, it's more like a private developer's choice, I believe, where they put it on their property. Planning and Development Department may have other requirements for it. In terms of the brick pavers, is that on the property?
I'm sorry?
Is that on the property or?
Pavers are on McKnight, you said, a different location.
Yeah, that's a separate question. So that would be along Midnight Road. And like on this, so if I were to draw it, it would be like, this is McKnight. And there's like this decorative brick before you see the sidewalk.
Yes.
So that decorative brick is what's starting to erode. And so we don't really know what to do about that.
Yeah, actually, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act requires it's pretty stringent. Just 1/4 of an inch is the limit of what a trip hazard can exist in the public right of way, and so that would fall on the public agency to fix those areas. We avoid brick because it's difficult for those settlement reasons. We generally do monolithic concrete pours for those areas, not to run into that. But yeah, that would be probably a difficult fix. Remove that brick, prepare the base, set the base to the correct elevation, and lay the brick back again and fill the joints. Do that work on it.
So would that be something that our collective can mobilize for, or is that like a contact the city of Webster Groves as a point of information type of thing?
Probably more than,
Okay.
What intersection was that at?
That's, I'm sorry, who am I talking to?
This is Derek. Sorry, I'm remote here.
and he's
Oh,
on the
okay.
traffic advisory.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Good morning to you. This is on McKnight. Like if I'm leaving my house on Bacon, I make a right on McKnight and I'm walking towards the train tracks. It's right before you get to,
Bacon intersects with Rock Hill, right?
yes, yes.
And then you get on Rock Hill and go up, and where Rock Hill turns on. Okay, I'm sorry. McKnight is Rock Hill. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But are you familiar with what I'm talking about then?
I'm looking at it on satellite right now. I just want to see if you're talking. I want to see if you're talking about a decorative crosswalk. Oh, you're talking about the inlaid bricks where the bike
Yeah.
lane is. I
Yes.
see
So
you.
Rock Hill and Lockwood, around there.
No, you're at Rock Hill, and this is Rock Hill and Bacon. I'm looking at it right now. I
Yeah,
see what you're
yeah,
talking
Rockville and
about.
Bacon. Thank you.
I don't know. So I mean, I'm a partner with a civil contracting company. We don't do this, but I'm familiar with what it is. I don't know why they chose to do it in this location. Um, it looks like those are actual inlaid bricks. Yeah, that's that could be. That's probably a maintenance department thing, I would imagine.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it may have been done as a stormwater quality measure. We want to treat stormwater in place as opposed to running it into sewers.
Yeah, if you were concerned about permeability, that's certainly
Exactly.
possible.
Exactly. But yeah, that area needs quite a bit of work. At least it's vehicular. I think it's a parking lane there that was treated that way. But yeah, we now see that there's a lot of problems, and we'll get to some of the more settled areas. There are more settled areas than some less, I think. But yeah, I mean, if I had my choice, probably remove it. I would have removed it all and then paved it all. But then that doesn't help the stormwater either. So we should keep it as it is, I believe.
Okay.
We can talk more offline about that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Thank you.
I just thought I'd also chime in about your question about how this intersects the other committees. For TAC, we're the traffic advisory committee. Honestly, if you were to sit in our meetings, we spend a lot of times, Adnan knows, we spend a lot of times talking about crosswalks. um, we but I mean we intersect. This is directly intersects with, I mean, frequent topics of our conversation. And as you guys know, we're going to be doing some educational outreach separate from SS4A, but we've teamed up with TrailNet, and we're going to be doing just general education on safe streets and multimodal transportation. Um, and you know, the intersection for us is we believe that people biking and walking more in the community benefits everyone, and that's why we think this is important.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eric. And you guys receive, you have a list, right, of concerning areas
Correct.
Yeah, can
Yes,
you,
is Eric here today?
he's not.
Okay, yeah, so Eric heads up, I can't remember what he calls it, but essentially all complex, when people like the issue we just discussed, that would be a perfect issue for this. Somebody calls him and or if somebody calls Webster Groves or the police department and reports it, it winds up with Eric and he puts it on his list. And I should know the name because we talk about it every month, but it's an active spreadsheet of issues. And what Eric's function on TAC is he comes to us, a lot of them he'll just resolve on his own. But if he thinks it's appropriate, he'll come to us and bring up an issue. And for example, Paleo Coffee, when they opened, there was a lot of parking issues on the street next to them. I'm blanking on the name, but he fielded a lot of complaints about it, and it wound up becoming a topic, and we came up with a really good solution for it. And that's an example of kind of what kind of stuff we can wind up doing. I'm talking about Marshall Place at Gore, but people will call in and say, hey, in this instance, I can't park in front of my house because there's always commercial traffic parking in front of my house. What can we do about it? And that's kind of stuff that comes in front of the TAC. The TAC will sit there, discuss it. And then, we're an advisory committee. So we try and come up with structured plans to solve the issue. And then we recommend those to City Hall.
Okay. Beautiful. That's good enough. Thank you so much.
I'll piggyback on that because I think this related, I said the police community engagement board, and we once in a while get feedback that is related to parking, traffic, road safety. And so there's some intersection there. I think primarily our goal is,
And sorry, Jill, can I ask a question? How do they reach out to you?
so we have an online feedback form
Okay,
that sits on our city website page.
okay,
That the primary way.
okay,
Yeah. So it's not very often.
okay,
We get things about like city ordinances and we'll get kind of the traffic question, but our intent is more so, building that trust, that relationship between community and police. I think what we end up talking a little bit more about is things like safety in the community and just getting folks more aware of what they can do to prevent crime and whatnot. But I think ultimately just the goals of safety here are relevant and what the community is looking for.
perfect. Thank you. Anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Elon?
No,
Okay.
I think I'm good.
And also, I know that you also came to this board as a community member. I think we were trying to find some residents that weren't necessarily on a board because, a lot of our residents on boards and commissions are engaged, they know what's going on, but we were also just trying to find residents that aren't, necessarily tuned into everything. And I think we put out a call and you were very gracious to take us up, although you do happen to be on the ARB, so thank you.
You know what I do have, I guess as a resident, and Webster is hilly, as we know. And so like on Bacon, well, McKnight at Bacon, there's a hill. And so when traffic comes, it's almost like you kind of have to get out into the street a bit to see to the left before you make your turn because the hill sort of obstructs the view a bit. And so I don't know if there's like a stop sign that could be put in places or if like what department handles those types of issues, to be sure that people because people unfortunately drive as if they're the only ones on the road these days. And sometimes it can be tricky to make a left turn onto McKnight from my street because that view is obstructed. So what do we do about that type of thing?
That could be a traffic advisory commission request. It could, if it's, I don't want to be, PCEB is really more about building trust.
Yeah.
So But if it's law enforcement based, you could always send, Chief Eric Weimer sits on this task force as well, and he's the liaison to the Traffic Advisory Commission. You could send him a note as well. There's the Fix It form on the city's website, and that's kind of, I don't know if that's really the best way to collect this kind of information, but
It's being incorporated into the magnet now, and it will be, because it's gonna get into our system right away.
okay.
Now it's kind of separate systems, so yeah, I think that's good. But the intersection is pretty well known for its site distance issues. I would actually ask you if you would have any contact with that resident at the corner where the fire hydrant is. So if we can do a lot of things in the public right away, but we don't want to do this in spite of what a resident is asking for. And I believe in the past there have been some conflicts with the resident, the corner house, right, that Bacon and the northern corners, Bacon and
Yes.
so I think, and so that's the most challenging part of the site distance, because as you come out of Bacon, if you look to the left, you cannot see because the biggest park vehicles. So what we want to accomplish here is extend the parking population so that it's more open for the Bacon Avenue residents, as well as paint the stop bar so those cars can come up forward up to the edge of the road further so that they can see better.
That would be great. That would be great. You know, not to be too personal, but that person isn't exactly neighbor. So I wouldn't talk to him about anything. I wouldn't ask him about the weather. So, you know, I would much rather deal with someone who can address the issue directly than waste my time.
Yeah, we'll work on it. I know it came up with another large project. There, still looking. There is some parking restrictions at the corners, but that particular one is not enough. It needs to be lane.
Gotcha.
That's what.
Gotcha. I'll quickly chime in. I mean, as a school district, we're majorly impacted by roads and everything. So that comes down all the way from we transport students, so we have buses, big buses trying to go through Webster roads. We have students at bus stops, so we're always evaluating the same bus stops. We have a lot of students that walk. For a long time, this road didn't even provide transportation, so we had a lot of students walking from all over Webster Road, so walking safety is extremely important. We probably are one of the primary drivers for fluctuations in traffic. You know, but at arrival and dismissal, we have a lot of parents and a lot of cars all parking in one time and walking to the school or driving through the pickup line or stopping traffic to make turns, and we're aware of that. And then also, we have a lot of teenage drivers that we pop right down into the middle of Webster Road and tell them to find a parking spot. And we do our best to provide as many spots as we can. But we're also teenagers, and so I've seen some of them trying to park. And so the safety related to all of those young drivers parking all around the area. We've done a lot of work to try to mitigate some of that, it's gotten better. But we always see fluctuations in drivers, especially this time of year. Our sophomores have turned 16, so they're starting to drive more and more. But all of that work with us, and to an extent, some of it falls on the city and police, and I mean, we can't police public roads, and we can direct students, but they can do things. So, a lot of work yourselves.
Yeah.
In this case, be able to walk safely, walk home safely. Those cars can go park to show traffic.
Thanks for being here. That's really important to have the school district involved in these conversations. You're absolutely right. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you, guys. Community engagement. Okay, Webster on Wheels is Saturday, May 3rd, 1:30 to 4:30. It's at Bristol Elementary. This is the community's bike ride. We talked about it last month. The task force will be present to table. So We've got the 2 shifts. Jill, are you still good for 2:30? Okay, and Dr. Elong, you are still good for 12:30?
Yes.
Okay,
So, it's just 12:30 to 30. Is that possible?
yeah, I think that'll be fine. Um, we would love, I think it's helpful for you being on the opening shift just to help us get set up. And then I think we'll be up and running and so it'd be great if you can still make it for all. Thank you so much. For the folks that are volunteering for this, I'll send you guys a message separately to review some logistics, but I did. Oh, sorry, can you advance? I'll just cruise through this. We won't spend too much time on this part, but we have, the tables are gonna be provided by Bristol Elementary. We'll bring Webster Groves tablecloths. We're gonna bring easels. We're gonna bring water jugs from Public Works. Don't mind that question mark. That's actually confirmed now. And then we're bringing 3 large posters. One is a large map to mark where people that come up and we engage with to mark where they live. And really this is just to help ensure that during our community engagement, our sample sizes, we're hitting people from all parts of the community. So that's why, so all of our engagement events, we will have a large map to capture where people live. And then we also will have 2 engagement questions and we'll put one on each poster board. And so I'd like to talk about that next with you guys and see if you have suggestions on what we should ask the community members, like what kind of feedback we'd like to get from them. I've got, you can pass that around. This was our survey at a glance results. And so I'll just quickly review that the top roadway concerns by the community reported in our first survey were number 1 was speeding, aggressive or distracted driving, then unsafe pedestrian crossings, lack of sidewalks, challenging intersections, and unsafe bike lanes was number 5. So if that might help, give some background context. And then the 3 things they suggested would have the greatest impact on safety would be safer pedestrian crossings, a more complex sidewalk network, and traffic law enforcement. So if we want to dive down deeper into any of those areas, or if there's something totally different that you think would be helpful, open to suggestions. I'll just let you think about it for a second. And of course, if we struggle on the spot right now, you're always welcome to send a note or Dr. Martin and I can brainstorm it further.
Needs to make a decision. What's the turnout for the post, for the question?
Like 1 week. So by tomorrow, probably.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know if we want to do this for maybe a separate map to do this, but like kind of having people call out their number 1 area of concern.
Yeah.
I think I saw that on that, roads of concern.
Yeah.
And only giving them 1 option and kind of see where summarize into a path.
And would you put that for just roads in general or maybe intersections? Because roads, like if it was just roads in general, I mean, Rock Hill is a long one or Big Bend.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, if they're putting a dot on the map, then that's helpful.
Specific. And I wonder if you want to tie it to
Right.
like specifically crosswalks or specifically where they want sidewalks, maybe like picking one of these top concerns or top impacts and
Yeah.
that may be too specific.
Well, how do we feel about starting the question with the intersections? Like regarding roads and intersections, what is your number 1 area of concern?
And also I think it's beneficial. I think a lot of the people that will be at this event are going to be families. It's at Bristol. It's not necessarily a school district event. It's just a community event, although the school district's Bike to School Day is the day before on Friday. It's Bike to School Day for the district and teeing off this community event. So maybe we focus on pedestrian crossings or sidewalks, but keeping in mind for students that are walking or biking to school.
So if I'm hearing you right, are we saying that a good question would be regarding pedestrian crosswalks? So regarding crosswalks, what is your number one area of concern? Is that
Yeah.
a good engaging question?
And we need to,
Right, but
so-
I'm just working on the one, but like, so would that be a good one to start with?
yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
You,
Dr.
Allen.
I'm sorry?
you're,
Oh, yeah. Let me write it down right quick before I forget it.
Crosswalk and the crossings, because there's no crosswalk that needs to be added.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
said, so crosswalks and crossings? Okay, perfect. So we can say something like regarding pedestrian crosswalks and crossings, comma, what is your number one area of concern?
Yeah. I think that's great.
Okay,
okay, so in that question, we have to flush it out because what it's gonna look like. Are we open-ending this question? Or are we putting A, B, C, D, E?
I think
Or
we're,
like scale, what are you doing for?
well, we're thinking maybe a map
Yeah.
maybe
The-
like
The
a,
district or not.
Okay.
to find precise locations.
mm,
Okay,
and if
What
it's,
are your thoughts?
no, I like it.
And maybe it's just different color stickers, if we just want one, maybe a color for where you live and a color for the question to save on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead just a little bit so we can drill down this one. Well, it's not in here. Oh, yes, it is. Okay. So these two maps. They are demonstration areas, demonstration projects. Do you think a map like this would be beneficial?
I was thinking it's the whole city
It is.
of like,
Oh, okay.
like someone's like, oh, I have an issue with this intersection for crosswalks, and then they put a sticker on it.
Are there any pieces that you feel like from an application perspective that you haven't gathered enough data already?
ooh, good one.
That's where I mean, we've done the survey, we've done some of the outreach with this group, you've done some, you know what I mean? So like, you probably got a checklist of questions you have to answer on the application. And so I would think about, is there anything that you haven't gotten enough responses to, or you're getting ready for this 2025 implementation grant application, is there something that's on the application that either A, you didn't tackle the first go around because you thought you would have a whole other year to tap the implementation grant? You know what I mean? That's where I would focus if you have a gap or a hole, because we've talked a lot about specific areas. You guys have, you had police involved, fire involved, safety, all these different committees involved. You've reached out and had people specifically talking about specific area. My thought would be, if you're going through this grant application, all of a sudden it asks you what's the community's perspective on blank, and you're like, that would be where I would put that. At least then you would have some data to support that pieces.
So our safety survey was designed around the proposal, and what's required for gathering data for the community in an action plan. Which is why, I mean, there were questions that we didn't want it to be too long. But the residents gave us information in the open-ended sections that made sure that we got a lot of information. I think that since it is around bicycles, I think that may be information that we can gather. Like we did EDC and we asked the business questions.
Yeah.
And to your point, that's true. If there's anything that's missing as far as community engagement, but we have private citizen engagement that we can use TAC, we can use the police engagement, commission board, we can use all that information to inform this proposal. Right now, we just really have to stay on task with
And that's my other question, like my other question was gonna be, and. Because I'm just,
No.
I'm just the person that does that. If we're already almost to the application stage, do we need any more community feedback? Or is this just a way to get them to answer the question? Like, we already have an idea of what projects we would be implementing during the implementation stage, then do we want more feedback on other areas? You know what I mean? Like,
No, I 100% understand what you're saying. So yes, we're going to apply for the implementation grant. But what we have to like keep in mind is that the safety action plan is not just for the grant. It's a commitment from Webster to say this is what our residents want.
Got it.
So if, you know, city says they want every street for done, 4 lanes, and there's a commitment to that, the feds aren't gonna pay for all of that. So there still has to be buying in from the residents, there still has to be, you know, we have to take council and they have to agree. So yes, the feds will fund some of it, hopefully, but the city has to fund a portion of it too, right? So that's what this action plan is. So yes, to your point, ultimately it was supposed to inform the implementation grant, but it's a commitment from the city. And so it's important that we hear from the residents, and our general safety action survey did that, but there are sections of it that we still want to tone down because we can't say that everybody that took it was a cyclist, right? And so we're at a cyclist event. The information that we got from BDC wasn't all captured in the general survey.
Yeah.
So when we go to these specific events, it's to ensure that we're getting what we need, you know?
Then my question would be targeted towards the cyclists. What do you feel
Yeah.
like is the biggest safety concern?
Right.
When riding bicycle
Right.
roads?
Yep.
And that was one of the top 5 unsafe bike lanes. So why don't we have the other question be, you know, what would make biking safer? Or, yeah,
I mean, because that can still happen. That's not, we don't have to veer off from that question. We just need to hear, like, only write the question down. It's about that.
You're even used to saying that they're putting a pin or something where they live. Give them a red pen or a red marker to serve. Unless you like it.
So. Trying to think. We have a legend for it, though, right? For the map. Oh, no, we don't. Yes, we can do that. We can do that.
I was just thinking that you don't have to have 2 different things. You
Right.
just say, put a pin where you are and use a red pen if you want to put an X or a circle where you feel like it's the most unsafe.
Yeah. Okay.
So question 2 would be then, what would make biking safer for Webster Groves cyclists? Got it.
yes.
We have our 2 questions.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Is there any decisions around the demonstration project where we would want to take like a little vote or tally at this event? And like those are probably pretty big.
So I don't think we want to get into the demonstration. I mean, the specifics of the demos yet. We're just not quite there yet, but we do want you guys to be aware of them. And I know they were shared in the original kickoff meeting, but we've had a lot of changes on the task force. So can you go to the next slide? Oh yeah, okay. So this is a timeline as well. This deck I'll send out to everybody today. Now it's important to keep in mind, this is the current timeline. These dates might fluctuate, but right now our NEPA environmental review is slated to be complete by the end of September, meaning that the construction of our demonstration projects wouldn't start until November because we can't purchase anything for the demonstration projects until that environmental review is complete. So it's not like it's going to be able to start right away. And then those demonstration projects are temporary. And so really we're thinking those would probably only be active for a couple weeks. And then we move into collecting data and evaluating those demonstration projects. So here's just a little timeline. And I'll send this out to you guys electronically so you have it. And then also let's go into the demonstration projects. Okay, so we have 6 demonstration projects. We will certainly go into these further, this fall or at the end of the summer when we come back. But we wanted you guys to know a little bit about these now in case questions do come up at the Webster on Wheels event or whatnot. But we've got 6 temporary speed humps. And then obviously, you know what a speed hump is, but there have been, these are supposed to be going into 8 high traffic areas through the city. And then we've got adaptive signal timing. This is basically just where we're tweaking this timing of the existing traffic signals. This has to be done in collaboration with the county. And then we've got project number 3 is adaptive variable speed limit signs. That's a picture in the bottom right of what one of those speed limit signs looks like. And those go into 3 of our most traveled corridors. And then to project number 4, if you advance, thank you, the multi-use path. Okay, so that's connecting, that's on Elm Avenue, connecting Lockwood to Kirkham to connect to North Webster. There's just one multi-use path. And then the in-road warning light systems. These are supposed to go at 5 different pedestrian crosswalks. And this picture on the left is what that looks like, in-road warning light system. And then our last demonstration project is a pedestrian hybrid beacon. We just have one of these and it's going on Brentwood Boulevard near the Kirkham Industrial Court where there's a church there. And you often see on Sundays, people having to cross Brentwood because the overflow parking is on the other side. And so there is currently,
There's like a crosswalk.
yeah, there's a crosswalk, but you know how fast the vehicles travel on that road. So this would be, would make them much more visible. So those are the 6 demonstration projects. And then let's go look at the map. Okay. Thank you. So it might be a little fuzzy to see, but that's in the legend, you see the pedestrian hybrid beacon. It's the purple one. Dr. Martin, can you use your map and show us? Yeah, okay. On the left-hand side, so the left, obviously this is the north part of Webster Groves. Okay, so there's the pedestrian hybrid beacon. Okay, let's look at that blue. All of the blue that you see on both sides, this is the adaptive variable speed limit signs. So that's, Edgar Road, Elm, Brentwood, our corridors that we have swift moving traffic. Okay, the green is the adaptive signal timing, so that's on South Elm, Big Bend to Lockwood. Then the red those are speed humps. So those are kind of peppered throughout, but on so Edgar Road, Glendale, some of our, higher traffic corridors. And then the multi-use path, can you see it? That's it's kind of fun. So that Elm has a lot of things going on, but it's not that part. It's right there. It's just in that section. Okay, and then those little yellow ones are the in-road warning light systems.
Okay.
And so these demonstration projects were in our application to the feds for our original planning and demonstration grant, and they were developed with input from the Traffic Advisory Commission, the Police Community Engagement Board, and the Sustainability Commission. Just if, you're wondering how we came up with these, it was, a collaborative effort.
Most of this construction is low key.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take all that long. The biggest thing probably minimal.
Well, and that actually, and Sanan, you can speak to the multi-use path, but it's striping, it's not.
George Mayor's separated, striped the road,
shoot the road striping, I think we're gonna be down to one-on-one, one lane in each direction and more down. And with the center turn. So we stripe the road for that and then pump the edge up with a Jersey barrier, concrete barrier between the traffic and about a 10 foot wide, 8 foot to 10 foot wide, for cyclists.
And so also remember, these are meant to be pilot demonstrations. We are not certain that all of these will be effective at addressing the concerns of the community. So, you know, this multi-use path, we hope will be beneficial, but you know, feedback may come back that everyone hates it. So what's that?
That yours too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, what if we the question of, what happens next in terms of if folks really do like this and they want to see them stay? What's kind of the response to that?
So
That-
you
So that's the reason for the pre and post survey.
Okay.
So as we said, if we're applying for the implementation grant, however, if there's a commitment from the residents and the city council, then that's something that can still happen because the feds can't pay for it.
Which is
Right?
why the safety action plan is so important as to what Dr. Martin was speaking about a few minutes ago. But in this task force, you know, is also seen not only in helping to evaluate these demonstration projects, but also in advocating for the adoption of the safety action plan. You guys are really the organizing body that will present this to city council and ask for their commitment and for it to be adopted. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean though that we'll necessarily be able to keep the demonstration projects in place. You know,
Right.
Yeah, that's what, so the demonstration grant is providing funding for us to put these demonstration equipment in, right?
mhm,
So then at the end of the demonstration period, what happens to the equipment, right? Like we have to prove whether it worked or it didn't work.
yes.
So if it says it didn't work, it's like, is it our equipment? Is it owned by the city of West Grove? So maybe the survey data didn't support it, so the feds wouldn't say it was effective, but police and fire said, yeah, it was effective.
Right.
You know,
In that area I'm talking about, or just the tool was a thing.
it's cool. You know what I mean? So like, say you put down speed bumps.
What happens to the equipment?
That's, my question is, you were talking about, okay, well, the survey said blind, right? There's not gonna be, in my opinion, lighted crosswalks are not gonna be detrimental to anyone. So they're gonna only improve people's experience. But if for some reason the grant survey data, for some reason, depending on who filled it out, whatever, I'll say, okay, no, these crosswalks didn't improve it. They didn't turn either, you know what I mean? You,
No impact.
who has the decision to say,
Let's
we're
keep
gonna
them.
keep those lights on?
Great question.
I was just making sure that the city had that authority.
Oh, right, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
This may be a conversation for another day, but say us folks on banking want speed bumps. Cause the Amazon drivers don't care about the kids. So like, what do we do if we want speed bumps on our street? Do we have to submit a proposal? Do we have to, you know what I mean? Like,
city owns the street,
Right.
so the city would decide whether there's speed limits or
so a resident would have to speak to the city.
not. Just
Mhm. Yeah,
make sure you're still about people. on the street.
Yeah, absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Alright.
Good point.
What are these speed bumps?
Good point.
Okay, I had a couple extras of these printed in case, if you already have them at home, these are talking points. I wanted just to make sure you guys had them before Webster and Mills. And if you don't need one,
Thanks.
and pass it on.
You will.
So you have talking points. We've reviewed Is there any more questions about the timeline right now? So we've got to get the environmental review done. It's in process. We expect that to be done by the end of September. We can't purchase any demonstration project materials until that's complete. So that puts us into October likely. And so we wouldn't be implementing any demonstration projects until November. All of this is tentative, but this is what we're anticipating. We will be preparing some pre-demonstration project surveys that will talk about the demos to inform the community that they're coming and what they are. And also so we can collect their responses and their immediate reactions to them. And then after the demonstration projects, we'll go back and survey them again and see what's changed and ultimately what they felt about them. And that pre-demonstration survey, we'll be working on it over the summer. But it would probably be mid to late summer, mid to late that it will come out, so.
I do think we may see less use. I'm thinking about the timing, it's gonna be older, the crosswalk one may not, like that might not be ideal timing to test that out, but I'm not sure we have a whole lot of choice there. If folks aren't walking as much as they may this next weather.
It's a good point. We don't really have a large window to play
Yeah.
with. Because of the milestones and the requirements of the planning and demonstration grant. But, yeah, well, I mean, also it's possible that the environmental review is finished, or, it's possible that things get moving earlier. Depending on when that environmental review is completed. It will, at least though, we thought it'd be beneficial that it is still the fall, like summertime, we don't have kids walking to school as much. So at least school is in session. So it's on, it's still top of mind for parents with kids that are walking. But yes, yeah,
And hopefully, I mean, November.
yeah.
Season, yeah, we talked about that multi-use path. You guys may have not seen it before. This past winter was my first winter here. Under that railroad bridge, right around the corner from here, there's a big ice chunk that forms there all throughout winter. And our path is gonna get to
Yeah.
right there. And so it's not gonna be a winter experiment for sure. Nobody's gonna be able to traverse that area. It's just whenever we make this permanent, if we want to make it permanent, then we need to consider some drainage solution there as well. Because that water is not gonna make it passable. I mean, when it's water, maybe people are gonna walk through it. But when it's ice, that's not.
I know exactly the patch you're talking about. It's under the bridge, yeah, the train track bridge, yeah, on North Elm, yeah. And it was frozen this for like a month at least, yeah. Okay, good to know. Well, we're just over time, just by a few minutes, but thank you guys very much for coming today.